All right, I think we are live. What's going on, everybody? My name is Dr. Joseph Rayner, and welcome back once again to the QOL Health and Performance Podcast. I'm joined once again by my good friend Chris Vega, who is a performance coach out of Austin, Texas, and has recently started a new business called Athle-X, right? And so, Chris, my friend, thank you so much for your time today. It's great to have you back on the podcast. I'm really excited for this episode today.
Thank you, man. Yeah, really appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here again, and yeah, let's get to it.
Let's do it. Yeah. And so, as you and I had talked about before, with the new year coming around and people trying to figure out, how they want to make their New Year's resolution goals happen, we decided that we would hop on this call together and do a little recording for you guys, so we can have some, experts kind of talk about, New Year's resolution goals, what all that kind of looks like, all the factors that may be a part of that, and see how we can help you guys really accomplish your goals for this coming year, right? Um, yeah, so again, I'm really excited about this because this is definitely a particular topic that I'm very much interested in. Knowing what I know about, the way that I interact with my patients and my clients and all, and I'm sure you feel the same way as I do. So this is gonna be good, man.
Oh yeah, love it, love
Um,
it.
all right. And so, first things first, just to get the ball rolling here, what are your thoughts on New Year's resolutions, and do you have any kinds of resolutions that you have for this coming year?
Yeah, so I love any type of goal setting. I think it's such an important factor in order to work towards something. First, you need to find something that really motivates you enough to change, to do a change in routine, to wake up at 5 a.m., to go running or to go lifting. Like you got to, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why maybe sometimes people don't stick to their goals. And it's because they don't have a motivation that is urgent enough for them to make change. And so, yeah, anyways, like when it comes to the goals, I feel like you just really need to find that why. Why is it that I want to accomplish something? And sometimes just starting a new year is a good enough reason to like kind of reset the thinking and be like, okay, maybe this year I want something new, and that's completely fine. I know some people out there maybe make fun of people who make New Year resolutions,
Yes.
maybe because we've seen the statistics, not many people really stick to it. But the fact is that goal setting, it doesn't matter what it is, if it is physical goals, if it is business or career goals, like you need to have some type of goals in order to motivate yourself enough to do something about it.
Yes, and that reminds me of a quote I'm thinking of right now, where it was something along the lines of, if your perceived pain of your current state does not exceed your perceived pain of change, then the change is probably not going to occur, right? And so, kind of like how you were saying, like there needs to be that initial level of motivation and inspiration for someone to say, you know what, like whatever I'm doing right now, I'm not happy enough with, and I need to go ahead and take the stride and make that change that I want in my life. And that's a lot easier said than done, but that it starts with that, right? And so again, later in this podcast, we'll dive a bit deeper onto all of that good stuff. But that's definitely one of the first main takeaways, right? Is like that initial spark of initiating that change that you want to make in your life. It's got to
Yeah.
have a strong enough flame under your butt to make it happen, right? So with the
Also,
yes. Mhm.
no, yeah, I was just gonna say that all goals are important. Like there is no, dumb goals or whatever. Like whatever matters to you, that's really important. It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter what it is, right? If it is maybe running just 1 mile, that's completely fine if that's your goal.
Exactly.
Uh, but it is really important to have a plan for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so like for this coming year, what kinds of resolutions do you have for yourself?
Yeah. So I definitely want to improve my cardiovascular fitness. Actually, that's one of the main things. For the last few months, I've been focusing a lot on just strength, muscle building. But yeah, on the physical side of things, I really want to improve my running pace. Actually, that's one of the main things I have. So I already started, right? Last week, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get ahead of the new year and I'm gonna start running. Very easy paces right now, very slow. But my goal is that hopefully by April I can do a competition. I'm looking at the 10K here in Austin, the Statesman Cap 10, and so that's on my side.
Yeah,
I do have
awesome.
some business goals as well, especially like you were mentioning. I started a new business, so I do have some very specific goals that I'm planning already. And I also have me and my wife goals for us, for ourselves, trips for next year. And then also, yeah, it's all related to the business as well, because of course, uh, we want the business to succeed as well. Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. I love that, man. Yeah, and then for myself, as far as like my personal goals are concerned, my I guess I could say, my passions relate more so to my work and my businesses, right? So like, 2023 was a pretty like tumultuous year for me personally, where my physical goals and business goals just didn't really pan out the way I had planned. But that's life, you know what I mean? And just because it didn't work out the first time around doesn't mean that it's not going to work out this next time around. So I'm really looking forward for 2024 to be that chain catalyst, and to see that difference in outcomes for, again, like both like personally and business wise, right? Like, this type of content that you and I are creating together, for example, for today, I think is extremely valuable for people to listen into and learn from. And then as far as like my personal physical goals are concerned, I am pushing 30 years old. It is not going to be any easier later on in life to achieve some like physical bucket list type stuff than it is for me right now. And so, if there is ever a time for me to accomplish those kinds of goals, and now is the time. Right? So that's where all of that kind of comes in. So yeah, again, I think 2024 is gonna be a great year for the both of us, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, no, thank you. And like you're saying, I think something very valuable that you said is the fact that even if you tried something in the past and it didn't go the way you were planning, that's not a reason to never try again, right?
Exactly. It
So
doesn't define you.
people who might be doing this and they're like, oh, I've tried to, I don't know, like lose X amount of weight or start training X amount of days a week, and I've failed in the past. Well, it doesn't mean that you're gonna fail again. You just gotta keep trying. It's all about persistency,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's really all that matters. Like your mentality and how you see things and how what are you gonna do about it, right? I feel like that's huge. That's just yeah, that's just my thought
Exactly,
process.
exactly. Like again, like for me personally, as far as like with the business, right? So like, first time around, I kind of went in not really knowing how to run a business whatsoever, and this time around, I at least have some experience. But on top of that, I've definitely spent a lot of time finding mentors, good quality mentors who can teach me, the error of my ways and things like that, and invest time and money into that, right? And so again, like this time around, like how you and I were just talking about when we were on the phone together, I'm barely probably a month back into my business, and I'm already having much more success than the year that I spent trying to build up QOL this first time around. So like, again, is there's what's the best way to say it? It like you said, persistence is key, right? And again, just because you fail the first time around doesn't mean that, like how I was saying, it doesn't define you, right? Like there are ways that you can overcome it. You just have to be open-minded to other ways of accomplishing the same thing, right? So, yeah, so that's kind of where that comes from there.
And in those even like failures or however you want to call it, really there is always a lesson to be learned, right? Like,
Yes,
and that's the thing, are you actually learning from the lesson or are you letting that failure define you, right? Because you got to take that lesson and now take it to a new level. And
exactly.
I feel like even for me, I guess I haven't shared with this with you, but I've tried other businesses in the past. And even from my background, when I came from Costa Rica, I was like 17, all the different jobs that I've had, many of those jobs were in sales. And now looking back at it, I'm like, oh shit, that really helped,
Yeah, no,
because
yeah, exactly.
that my own business. Like, I had to sell memberships for gyms. I was a personal trainer at other gyms. I was selling shoes. I was cleaning restrooms. I did everything that I can think of, And now looking back at it, it's like, oh wow, all those things have really prepared me for this moment.
Hmm.
And I'm sure for a lot of people starting the new year, even if they have failed in the past, at least they have tried and they have that experience. And that's a good enough reason to go ahead again and try again. And I'm sure they're going to be more successful this time.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And so, I think that's a great like point to kind of transition to some of this content that we want to share with these people, right? So like, as far as like training goals are concerned, right? So, how do you make your goals? How do you even like where do I start, right? And I think the first thing that's really important for people to do is to really soul search and figure out like what exactly are you trying to achieve or accomplish, right? Um, and because it's one thing to say like, I want to lose X amount of body weight, right? In X amount of time. And it's another thing to understand, like, again, like deeply understanding like where that comes from and why, right? Because something as figurative as these numbers and whatnot can say one thing, but maybe someone is thinking that because of physical appearance reasons, right? Or maybe somebody's thinking about that because of like physical health reasons. Maybe they have someone they know that developed some type of chronic illness or condition, and they said, what, like I don't want that to end up being me, so this is why I'm pursuing this now. So it's really important to understand your why. Like you have to start off with that, right? And also, when it comes down to figuring out your training regimen, at the same time, again, kind of relating back to that, like is the training that you're doing actually representative of your goals, right? So going back to the weight loss example, say someone decided that they're going to start running more, as a running coach, right? um, that's great. That's awesome that you're wanting to, push yourself out of your comfort zone and start being more active. But at the same time, like, are you also considering your diet as well? Because that's going to play a much larger role in achieving your weight loss than just the running on its own, right? So with those kinds of conversations, like how do you normally navigate that with your clients?
Yeah, no, actually, kind of like you're saying right now, for me, the main thing is always have open communication. And from the beginning, I'm like, okay, what is it that you want to accomplish? And not only the what, but the why, like you're saying, like, why do you want to do it? Like, what's the sense of urgency? So,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, I want to lose 10 pounds, but why? Like, is it because you have a specific event that you want to look a certain way, or is it because of health reasons? Or is it because you want to start maybe say running and you feel like losing 10 pounds will benefit somehow? I really want to understand what's the thought process behind the
Yeah.
what. And once you have that, then it's much easier to start making a plan of action. And I feel like plan is going to be the most important thing, because yes, you can have a goal, but unless you have a plan to actually accomplish that goal, really it's more like a dream, right?
Yep.
It's not a goal. And
Exactly.
so creating a plan on like, okay, say I don't know, say somebody wants to start running, like in your example, right? Okay, so how many days a week are you going to be running, and is this realistic? Like, are you going to be running 3 hours a day, or does your lifestyle really allow for that? um, let's see what else, like how are you going to be eating, how are you going to be fueling properly for this type of training?
Hmm.
Are you going to be consulting with somebody? And I don't know, like there is so many factors that go into it, and you just want to make sure that you have a really strong plan. And then of course you want to be like testing or doing some type of benchmarking every now and then to make sure you're actually working towards that goal, right?
Yep, exactly.
Because of
And one statistic that really struck me when I was like reading up on this before our call was that only 20% of people after 3 months of starting their new resolutions actually are still sticking with it and working towards it, right? And when I look at some of the human behavior studies that I read and things like that, I mean, it makes sense because a lot of these people try doing this on their own, right? And they kind of go into it again without a real solid plan or knowing of how to accomplish it. They kind of say, I'm going to do this, and they go do whatever they think or have heard of, maybe on social media and whatnot, on how to accomplish those goals. And they realize that regimen is not ideal or appropriate for them, and so they get burnt out or they give up on it or whatever, and now you're not pursuing that goal anymore. And so again, that's why I think this is such an important topic for us to discuss, because it's not that 80% of people are not capable of achieving their goals. It's most likely because a very large percentage of those people just don't really know where to start, don't know how to follow up or continue achieving those goals, or having that structure that they need to be able to accomplish it, right? And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, right? And so the first thing is, when goal setting or creating goals, the most important thing that I think gets overlooked is making sure that the goals are more so process oriented as opposed to outcome oriented, right? Establishing and figuring out how to create the process, right? For example, like, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'm going to be doing these kinds of exercises to help me to achieve my goals, as opposed to, again, like, making the main focus, I'm going to lose 5 pounds in 2 months or whatever, right? That, and studies have shown this as well. The study, I think, that was done back in like 2018 by Captain and their team, they looked at, again, like, it was a qualitative study, right? So this is based off of like people's perception, but after they had, pursued whatever fitness goals they had, one group of subjects were focused on the process, the other group was focused on outcomes. And what they found was that the people that were focused on the process had much more higher self-efficacy, self-happiness, self-esteem, with the process, and also with their overall outcomes too, right? So again, like, even though they weren't so focused on the outcomes that they ended up making them happier, right? Long story short, right? And so again, like, it's, because you can get real bogged down about staying so focused on the outcome, because again, like, someone out there may be able to accomplish that goal much easier than you. And so, if you're so focused on the outcome and you see people around you who are achieving that goal and you're not yet, that can really bog you down, as opposed to just kind of having like a window focus and saying, this is just what I need to focus on, is just getting my training regimen done, checking off the objectives, and then moving forward in the process, right? That's way more important.
Yeah, when you shared that study with me, it was actually kind of like an aha moment, because I was like, oh man, yeah, this makes so much sense. I should have been doing this since a long time.
Yeah.
And then I actually have one of my clients right now, and the other day I was asking him about the goals, and he was like, Chris, I just want to be consistent. I just want to show up. I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, that's really smart. Yeah, that's all we need. We just need to build that
Step
consistency
number one,
first.
just show up. Exactly. I
Yeah,
love that, because
really.
honestly, that could be the
Yeah.
hardest part.
And it's like, in my mind, as you were saying this too, I was thinking, this kind of sounds like investing on a 401k or in an IRA, that you're just putting money, or saving money every month, and you really don't see it for many years, and then one day you retire and you're like, oh, I was
Now, this
hopefully
money,
you're planning for
good.
it. But at least you're just consistently doing it. You don't really think about it anymore. You just, okay, this money goes there, and that's it. And then over the years, it just builds up into this net worth, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like same with lifestyle goals. Like, hopefully you're building something that you're pretty consistent on, and over time it's just going to happen.
Exactly. And that kind of goes back off to another topic that's really important to talk about, which is the difference between habit building and using willpower to help you accomplish those goals, right? So, like, as far as like willpower is concerned, I think the important thing for people to think about with that is willpower is actually really important to help really get you going, to get things started, right? Again, it's that change catalyst that you need, that fire under your butt to make a change, right? But willpower only goes so far, you see, because it can help in the beginning, but if you're solely just relying on willpower, again, studies have made it very clear that using that alone is not enough. It's not sustainable. People get burnt out when they do it that way. So what's more important is habit building, and again, like, having process oriented goals is the best way for someone to be able to build the habits, the lifestyle habits that they need to achieve those goals, right? Because habits are not fully conscious approaches, right? Like we all have a habit of when we get up in the morning, we have our morning routine, and then when we go to bed, you have your night routine, right? And a lot of us, those routines don't really change day to day. They're pretty much the same. We should have the same exact approach when it comes to our fitness oriented goals as well, right? I reserve this time of day for my gym time, and this is my time for that. And I do that this amount of times a week and XYZ, right? Like that makes it much more sustainable, and it's a much more realistic approach than, again, like forcing yourself to wake up at like 4 in the morning when you don't normally ever do that and don't really have any desire to do that. And you're not going to do that for a long period of time, right? And just like pushing yourself to do that as long as it takes, again, to lose that amount of weight or to build that much muscle or whatever. Like it just, again, it's just not sustainable. And if your goals are short term in nature and you're just trying to hit that goal in a short period of time and then you don't really care about what happens afterwards, okay, fine, go for it, right? But again, for the majority of people, I think they really do have the intention of wanting to change their lifestyle for the better. But again, it's just how they approach it is where I think most people are lacking right now.
Yeah, and something key you said also is you got to make the time. Like if you get a goal that is, you know, that you really want to accomplish, you gotta make that time somehow. To me, working out now is like, brushing my teeth. It's just,
Exactly.
it's part of my routine. I know it needs to get done. And so, yeah, my schedule sometimes it changes, like depending on when I see clients, but I always make sure that somehow I go to the gym and I work out because it's important enough for me. Like it's part of my health.
Yep.
And I love being strong, healthy, resilient. And therefore I make sure I get it done,
Yep.
so I just got to find the time.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like a good example is like for me on yesterday, actually, before I went to work, I accidentally set my alarm for the wrong time and I woke up a bit later than I normally would. And so I had to skip breakfast before I went to work. And I'm someone that never skips breakfast, right? And man, my body was so aggravated with me because of that, right? And just totally threw me for a loop for the rest of the day. Whenever I miss a certain amount of time from the gym or from my workouts or things like that, my body feels the exact same way, literally. Like I have the same level of like irritability, like something's wrong, something's off, right? Because again, like I've just spent so many years with these same habits with exercise and things like that whenever I get off of that routine, it bothers me as opposed to the other way around, which is what a lot of people feel, when they start a new exercise routine, it's really uncomfortable for them, right? But again, that's where, that process oriented goal making and structure in their programming is what can help them kind of turn that around for them, right? And making sure that they have a, long-term mindset in mind with that as well, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure we're gonna talk about this as well here pretty soon. But especially people starting out with exercise, like hopefully they are following a plan or they are consulting with somebody so that they can ease into it. Because I've seen many times people that have a goal of maybe start exercising and they go too fast, too soon, too crazy. And then next day they're really, really sore. They cannot move. They are hurting. And like you're saying, it's uncomfortable for their bodies. And
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, I don't want to do this ever again.
Yeah. Why would
Like,
anybody
what
put
should
themselves
I
through this?
bother? Yeah, why should I bother if it's gonna hurt this bad?
Yep.
Like this is not for me, or And so that's not really the case. You just need to have some type of program that you're following that hopefully progressively gets you to where you need to be.
Exactly, gradually and slowly. Yeah. And so that kind of goes into the next topic of like, like flexibility and rigidity in your programming, right? And so, the most extreme example of flexibility is like, I'm just going to go to the gym whenever I want. I'll do whatever exercises I want and I'll do it for whatever sets and reps. It doesn't matter, right? And then the most extreme example on the rigidity side is I'm going to go to the gym these exact days of the week for this much time, doing this many exercises for this many sets and reps, right? And so, when it comes to figuring out how flexible or rigid you should be, depends on the individual, right? And so again, that's where if the individual themselves don't know themselves well enough to know how to structure that, that's when utilizing a coach like myself or yourself to figure that out, right? Because we have all kinds of clients with different walks of life. Who some of my clients, I can let them roll with it for as long as they want, and I hardly have to reach out to them because I know they're going to get the job done. Versus I have some clients that I know I have to keep a closer eye on and communicate more often with because they need a little bit more supervision, right? And there's nothing wrong with either way, right? Everybody's different. Again, for me, personally, I don't know what they got going on in their personal lives that may affect how flexible or rigid they need to be, especially if you're a parent or you have working several jobs or whatever, right? And so, you may be someone that needs either more flexibility so you don't get burnt out from everything you have going on in your life, or on the same spin for that same person, you need that rigid set schedule because your free time is so limited. So you have to know for sure each hour of the day how you're going to get things done, right? Again, everybody's different. And so that's where, having an expert that can, help you figure that out is so important.
Yeah. Same for me. I have a couple of clients that they are like they just want me to write everything the way it needs to be done. And so the set amount of reps, set amount of sets, how much weight they should be doing. And no matter what, they will get it done on the day that it is scheduled for.
Right.
And they love it that way, right? And then I have some other clients that are like, they just get bored with always doing the same. And even if it's on a program, and they might want some variety, and so I just got to get a little bit more creative in those cases because they don't want to just follow the same all the time, or even sometimes traveling gets in the way, and maybe they cannot get it done on a specific day or the same way it should, it is planned. Maybe they want to work out at a hotel, and the hotel didn't have the equipment that they needed, and so you just kind of have to find that balance, like you're saying. Yeah.
Exactly. And again, there's no better way to do that if you don't know how to create how flexible or rigid your schedule is than to hire an expert who does that for a living, right? Yeah. And so next, what I want to talk about is something that I think may lead to a lot of people getting burnt out or giving up on their goals and whatnot, and that's something called systemic fatigue. Okay. And so in general, systemic fatigue is just like this global fatigue that's affecting your central nervous system. It's something that is not very obvious to people because it's not like, you pull a muscle and, oh, shoot, I pulled a muscle, because you feel that immediately. It's something that kind of creeps up on you. One day you kind of wake up and you're a bit more tired than usual, and it just kind of gets gradually worse and worse, right? To the point where you just lose interest in whatever you're trying to pursue. And so a lot of the common symptoms of that is like, just like general feelings of fatigue, having like aches and pains that you didn't used to have before. What's it called? Having decreased motivation, right? Having poor quality of sleep, right? So like you're sleeping the same amount of hours as before you started training, but all of a sudden now you feel more tired when you wake up in the morning, things like that, right? And so again, like when people experience those kinds of symptoms, that's not only uncomfortable, but it kind of gives them a red flag of like something is wrong. And of course, like if you're trying a new training regimen and that's like the only thing new going on in your life, obviously you're going to associate that with how you're feeling, right? And again, when you feel that way, and it's like, why do I want to continue doing this? Because this makes me feel so unpleasant, right? And then again, like a lot of people end up giving up on their goals because of that. And so, again, and you'll hear me harp on this often on this podcast. That's again, like if you're someone who runs into that kind of problem, that's where hiring an expert is so important. Again, especially for me, not only as a coach, but also a healthcare provider where, I run into these kinds of situations with my patients all the time too, right? And being able to help them overcome that and work around their schedules to figure things out and whatnot. Sometimes you have to be real creative in the physical therapy world. In the coaching world is not that much different. There's a fine line between, rehab and strength and conditioning and all that when it comes to these kinds of things. And so, again, sometimes it just requires a sit down conversation, a heart to heart with our clients and just saying, hey, like what's going on? Like, talk to me about it, right? And really breaking down their day-to-day activities to figure out how to best help them. Yeah. And so one of the other things also that I think is important to kind of touch on is like relating to that is also arousal, right? So like, having that energy to like, I want to go to the gym and get a great workout and things like that, right? Some people have this mindset that they have to feel that way every time they go to the gym in order for it to be worth their time, right? But again, like a lot of studies show that that approach is actually not beneficial for a lot of people. In fact, a lot of people can get burnt out from that because, as opposed to just kind of like, again, like having that habit of I'm going to go to the gym because that's what I do. It's again, I'm going to go to the gym and it's going to be the best workout I ever had in my life, and I'm going to feel that way every single time, right? And having that kind of expectation is a recipe for disaster for a lot of people. Because again, there's going to be some days where you are not feeling your best, or your lift is not as strong as it was before, or maybe you didn't feel as good during your run as you normally would, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not like anything happened to you that could have caused that. It's just one of those days. But again, a lot of people can get kind of confused about that if they haven't experienced that before and feel like something's wrong, and then they start losing motivation. So again, it's just things like that to consider, right? And again, like a lot of people will rely on like caffeine or pre-workout or things like that to artificially give themselves that level of arousal for their workouts and things like that. And again, for some people that works for them, and that's great, go ahead and do it, right? But not everybody is like that, right? And so just it's one thing that people should be open about, right? So yeah.
I think you got to be also passionate with yourself a little bit sometimes, because there's so many external factors that could affect training. Like maybe you had a bad day with your boss or at work, or maybe you're having some issues with friends, or who knows, a breakup, or there's so many factors that could be affecting training performance as well. And you don't need to expect every training session to be the best. Like sometimes it's going to be different, and that's completely fine. Sometimes you're going to feel a little bit more tired, and that's completely fine. But I believe that you got to be able to listen to your body and listen to your mind. And if you got to go easy one day, hey, at least you showed
Nothing
up,
wrong with that.
like that's awesome already. Like a few days ago, I was tired. I went to get a workout around 8 p.m. and I was like, man, this just feels different, completely out of routine. I wanted to get it done, but I wasn't lifting the same weights. It wasn't that intense. Sometimes you just gotta learn to listen to the body, and yeah, hopefully you're not relying on that
Right.
caffeine
No, yeah.
always
And,
to.
and again, like the important part of what you said, you still showed up and you still checked off that box, that objective from your list of things that you need to get done, right? Whereas a lot of people have this all or nothing approach where if they don't feel their best, they're just not going to go do it, right? And that's just, again, that's not going to serve you in the long run. What is really important is the consistency of again, like following your routine, right? Like that's way more important than 50% of the time I'm 100%, so that's when I'll go to the gym, and the other 50% of the time where I'm not 100%, I'm just not going to go, right? That's not going to help you accomplish your goals. What helps you accomplish your goals is showing up and putting in the time and being consistent with it, regardless of again, if you're feeling 100% or not.
Yeah, and that's where exercise programming comes. So like being able to know, or as you go through a few weeks, you already kind of know when you need to be resting, because resting is just equally important to accomplish your goals, right? So hopefully you have a good program that allows you to get enough rest so that you can keep performing the best. And then
Yes.
also, of course, making sure you're getting enough sleep, good nutrients, good amount of water, hydration, but all those factors come into place.
Exactly. Yep. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is relating to like managing people's expectations, which is again a real struggle that I'm sure you and I both have for our clients, where sometimes people come in with some unrealistic expectations, or sometimes they have a very reasonable goal, but but their perspectives on it can use some work, right? Where they're comparing themselves to other people in their friend group or family and things like that. And so again, like I think one of the important things for people to understand is, again, everybody is built differently, right? Like if we're just talking about genetics alone, right? So like there's another study I'm thinking about that was done like in 2011. They had like just under 200 test subjects in this, both men and women, and they all did this like 12-week bicep strengthening program, right? And by the end of the study, they saw the majority of people in both, gender groups and whatnot had experienced like a 15 to 20% improvement in their overall muscle mass size of the biceps. And then a small percentage of people experience like a 50+% improvement, which is pretty remarkable for that period of time. And then there was also a small percentage of people who saw like no improvement whatsoever during that period of time, right? And again, everybody was roughly following a similar like diet plan. Everybody in that group had no training experience prior to the study being conducted, right? So everybody had an equal opportunity to experience equal results. But as the study showed, there was this like loop of, where the majority of people kind of lied and then where the outliers lie as well, right? And so again, like I think the main lesson learned from that study is everybody's built differently. Everybody's going to respond to these kinds of interventions and programming differently. And, again, comparing yourself to other people is just a recipe for disaster. It's much more important for you to focus, again, having that tunnel vision and just focusing on yourself and achieving the goals that you have for yourself, right? So yeah, I don't know if you kind of run into stuff like that as well, but I definitely do on a pretty daily basis.
I have clients who, I mean, everybody's different. And so hopefully we have good communication on expectations. But I do have clients who maybe they just see a dumbbell and they already put muscle. And some people, it's, they have a harder time. And that's completely fine.
Exactly.
I think the best way you can see it is you just got to be the best version of yourself.
Exactly. I love that, right? Just focus on being the best version of you. Everybody's so caught up on like social media and trying to follow this influencer and being like them and things like that. And people need to understand that those influencers most likely are that, less than 1% of people in that kind of study where, they're able to basically train a certain way and their body is just going to respond ideally to it. And, most likely you're that kind of person who is not going to build the same way. And that's okay. What's important again is that you become the best version of you.
Yeah, hopefully you're
Yeah. And so,
goals.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think, the way that I want to wrap things up real quick is just to kind of give you a chance to, talk to people about, Athle-X and, what's going on with that.
Yeah, thank you. So as you were mentioning, I started my own business at the end of November. So I'm still, pretty recent. But yeah, I'm located in Austin, Texas, on the east side. And so what I do is basically combining massage therapy and sports performance together.
Cool.
So I get to work with people who maybe have been dealing with chronic pain and they want to get back to daily activities, all the way up to like athletes who want to improve their performance and maybe compete for something specific, such as competitions, CrossFit, running, cycling, swimming, all of it. So yeah, I just have a love for helping people, and that's my main goal right now here in
Awesome.
Austin.
Love that, man. I'm super excited to see where you're able to take Athle-X out. And again, I love the facility that you're in right now. It looks great. And like how you and I were talking about, you've already been getting a lot of positive feedback from your clients, and things are growing and things are going really well. So I wish you nothing but the best. With QOL, it's similar kind of thing for me. Like right now, it's just a matter of picking up where I left off, learning those lessons, and seeing how we can grow with my clients that I have, and helping people achieve their running goals and their full potential there, right? Yeah. And so again, Chris, thank you so much for your time today, brother. It was an absolute pleasure to be on the call with you, and I'm looking forward to hearing how things are going with Athle-X in the future. Okay.
Same here, man. Best of luck.
All right. Thanks a lot, brother.
We got this. Take care.